The announcement came right after Mom finished carving the Christmas ham. We were all seated around the mahogany dining table in what had been our family home for 23 years. The sprawling colonial where I'd grown up, where Christmas mornings had once been magical, where family dinners used to mean something other than strategic warfare. My brother Carlos set down his wine glass and cleared his throat like he was about to make a toast. Instead, he delivered what he clearly thought was a knockout punch. "Sophia, we need to talk about your living situation." I looked up from my plate where I'd been carefully cutting my ham into perfect little squares, a nervous habit I'd developed at family gatherings. "What about it?" I asked. "This house belongs to the family now," he began. "Mom and Dad are getting older and they'll need the space when they retire. You've been living here rent-free for 2 years and honestly, it's time you found your own place." Mom nodded solemnly. "We think it would be good for you, honey. You need to learn independence." Dad chimed in. "Carlos has been looking at the real estate market, and this house has appreciated significantly. We could use the space more efficiently." I set down my fork. "Use the space more efficiently?" Carlos continued, clearly warming up to his rehearsed speech. "Jessica and I are planning to have kids soon, and this house has that perfect nursery upstairs. Plus, with Dad's knee problems, they really should be living on one level. It just makes sense for everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. So, you want me to move out so you can move in?" "It's not about wanting," Mom said, using that careful tone she adopted when trying to sound reasonable. "It's about what's practical. You're 31, Sophia. Most people your age have their own homes. And Carlos is 34 with an actual career and a wife," Dad added. "He's in a better position to help us maintain this place." The subtext was crystal clear. Carlos had the real job as a financial advisor, while I was just the daughter who worked in computers and couldn't even keep a boyfriend long enough to get married. In their eyes, I was the family disappointment, the freeloading spinster taking advantage of their generosity. What they didn't know was that I'd been paying all the property taxes on this house for the past 3 years. What they didn't know was that when Dad had his heart attack 2 years ago and the medical bills started piling up, I quietly covered them. What they didn't know was that their generous decision to let me live here rent-free was actually me letting them live in my house. "So when do I need to be out?" I asked calmly. "Well, we were thinking New Year's would be reasonable," Carlos said. "That gives you a week to find something." A week. To find a new place during the holidays in a market where rentals were scarce and expensive. It was a timeline designed to make me panic, to make me beg for more time, to force me into gratitude for whatever scraps of mercy they offered. Instead, I pulled out my phone. The silence around the table was immediate and uncomfortable. In our family, phone calls during dinner were considered rude. But at that point I was done following their rules. "Who are you calling?" Mom asked. I held up one finger while the line connected. "Martinez Security Services," came a voice on the other end. "This is David." "David, this is Sophia Martinez. I need a team at the Oakwood Drive property immediately." "Yes, Miss Martinez. What's the situation?" "Trespassing. I need the Martinez family escorted from the premises within the hour." There was a pause. "The Martinez family, ma'am?" "That's correct. Carlos Martinez, Richard Martinez and Elena Martinez. They're currently in the main house and need to be removed." "Understood. We'll have a team there in 20 minutes." I hung up and placed my phone beside my plate, then calmly resumed cutting my ham. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Carlos stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Mom looked confused and offended. Dad was blinking rapidly, his go-to reaction when reality didn't fit his worldview. "Sophia," Mom finally said. "What was that about?" "I called security," I replied evenly, "to have you removed from my property." "Your property?" Carlos laughed, but it sounded forced. "Sophia, this house has been in the family for over 20 years. Just because you've been living here doesn't make it yours." "Actually," I said, reaching into my purse, "it does." I pulled out a folder, something I'd been carrying around for weeks, trying to decide when and how to tell them the truth. I laid it on the table and opened it to the first page, the property deed with my name on it. "This house was sold to me 3 years ago when you defaulted on the mortgage." Dad's face went pale. "That's impossible. We never defaulted on anything." "Dad," I said softly, "you stopped making mortgage payments in March 2021, when the medical bills started coming in. By December you were 6 months behind and facing foreclosure. But we caught up. Mom protested weakly. We got back on track. You got back on track because I bought the house from the bank and let you continue living here. I've been making the payments for 3 years. I flipped to the next page. The purchase agreement between the bank and Martinez Holdings LLC. My shell company. $847,000, I said. That's what I paid to keep this house in the family. Literally. Carlos grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. This has to be fake. You don't have $847,000. You work in IT support or something. I work in cybersecurity consulting, I corrected. My company holds contracts with 17 Fortune 500 firms and 12 government agencies. Last year's revenue was $42 million. The number hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed-out candle. $42 million? Dad whispered. Gross revenue, I clarified, not profit. But yes. That's impossible, Carlos muttered, his voice losing its edge. If you had that kind of money, why would you live here? Why drive that old Honda? Why dress like I shop at Target and eat lunch at food trucks? I finished for him. I've been asking myself the same thing. Why keep pretending I was struggling when I could have bought and sold your entire social circle? I looked at each of them, my brother, my parents, people who thought they knew me. Because I wanted to see who you really were, I said quietly. To find out if you valued me as a person, or only as someone you thought you could control. The truth was more complicated, but that was all they needed to hear at Christmas dinner. Being cowardly. That's what it was. It had always been easier to help from the shadows than to have the conversation about what I'd accomplished. About how our family dynamics had shifted without anyone noticing. But sitting at that Christmas dinner table, listening to them plan to kick me out of my own house so Carlos could move in with his wife and their hypothetical future children, I realized that conversation was long overdue. Sophia, Mom said carefully, if you own this house, why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you? I asked, my voice steady. When you asked about my job and I said, cybersecurity consulting, and you said, that sounds nice, dear, before changing the subject. When Carlos joked about me being the family computer geek. Or when you all assumed I was living here because I couldn't afford my own place. We didn't assume, Dad started. Dad, you literally just told me that most people my age have their own homes. You said Carlos was in a better position to maintain this place. You've spent 3 years thinking I was a financial burden instead of the person keeping you financially afloat. Carlos was still staring at the property deed like he could make it disappear through sheer willpower. Even if this is real, he said finally, you can't just kick us out. We live here. We have rights. Actually, you don't, I replied calmly. You've been living here as my guests for 3 years. I never charged rent, never signed a lease, never established tenancy of any kind. Legally, you're visitors who've overstayed your welcome. The doorbell rang. That would be security, I said, standing. David's always very prompt. I opened the front door to find 3 men in black uniforms, each with Martinez Security Services patches on their shoulders. David, a former police officer I'd hired to handle security for my business, stepped forward. His team specialized in protecting high-value clients and resolving sensitive situations discreetly. Good evening, Ms. Martinez, he said. You have a trespassing situation? 3 individuals in the dining room. That's correct, I said. They've been asked to leave and refused. Understood. Would you like them removed immediately, or do you prefer to give them time to collect their belongings? I considered it. Part of me wanted to watch them scramble to pack in 20 minutes, to let them feel the same panic they tried to impose on me with their New Year's deadline. But that would make me as petty as they were. Give them until tomorrow evening, I said finally. They can take whatever belongs to them personally, but the furniture and household items stay. As for the vehicles, the BMW and Mercedes can go. The Honda stays. It's mine. David nodded and walked toward the dining room. I followed, curious to see how my family would handle being evicted from their own Christmas dinner. The guards filled the doorway, their presence instantly changing the air. Carlos began to rise, chest puffed as if he might protest, but Jessica grabbed his arm and pulled him back down. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, David said politely. I'm David Chin with Martinez Security Services. You're currently trespassing on private property and need to vacate the premises. This is ridiculous, Dad said, though his voice had lost its authority. This is our home. According to property records, David replied evenly, this house is owned by Martinez Holdings LLC. Ms. Martinez is the authorized representative and has requested your removal. Mom turned to me, eyes wide with disbelief and something close to desperation. Sophia, honey, surely we can work this out. It's Christmas. Mom, I said quietly, 30 minutes ago, you were planning to kick me out by New Year's. What's changed? We didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You made assumptions about my life, my capabilities, my value to this family. And based on those assumptions, you decided I was disposable. Carlos finally found his voice again. Fine. Let's say you do own this house. Let's say you really do have some kind of business. That doesn't give you the right to destroy our family. I'm not destroying anything, Carlos, I said, meeting his gaze. I'm establishing boundaries. You wanted me out of this house, so I'm granting your wish. The only difference is, you're the ones leaving. Where are we supposed to go? He demanded. The same place you expected me to go, I said simply. Figure it out. David stepped forward. You have until 6 p.m. tomorrow to remove your personal belongings. After that, anything remaining will be considered abandoned. The family sat in stunned silence as the security team left. I stood there for a moment looking at the three people who had raised me, people who'd shaped my ideas of love and loyalty, and realizing how conditional both had been. Sophia, Dad said quietly, I think we need to have a longer conversation about all this. I think that conversation is about 3 years overdue, I replied. I walked upstairs, to my bedroom in my house and began packing. Not because I was leaving, but because I wanted to separate what belonged to my old life from what belonged to the new one. From the window, I watched Carlos and Jessica load suitcases into their BMW. Mom and Dad moved slower, carrying boxes to their Mercedes with the careful movements of people who'd aged 10 years in one evening. By morning they were gone. The house felt different without them, not empty but lighter, cleaner, as if a weight had lifted. I spent the day walking through rooms that had always been ours, and were now unquestionably mine, deciding what to keep and what to change. That evening the phone rang. Sophia, we're staying at Carlos's apartment for now, Mom began. But we need to talk. I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about us not asking, not knowing about your life. I think you're right. It wasn't exactly an apology, but coming from Mom it was close. Go on. Your father and I are proud of you, she said. We didn't realize how much you'd accomplished. Why didn't you realize it? There was a long pause. Then she sighed. Because we were so focused on what we thought success should look like that we couldn't see what your success actually looked like. That was closer to an apology. Mom, I need you to understand something, I said gently. I didn't reveal all this to hurt you or to show off. I did it because I was tired of being treated like the family failure when I've actually been the one keeping this family financially stable for years. The medical bills, she whispered. And the house payments. That was you. All of it. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried to talk about money or offer help, you shut me down. You told me not to worry about it, that you had everything under control. You made it clear that my input wasn't wanted. We were trying to protect you, she said softly. From what? From knowing that your family needed help? From having the opportunity to actually contribute something meaningful. Silence stretched again. Then Mom said, we were wrong. About a lot of things. Yes, you were. What happens now? She asked. It was a good question. I'd spent so much energy on the confrontation that I hadn't really thought about what came next. Now, I said, we figure out what kind of relationship we actually want to have. One based on who we really are, not who we think we're supposed to be. And the house. The house is mine. It's been mine for 3 years. If you want to live here, we can discuss terms, real terms with real conversations about expectations and boundaries. We'd like that, Mom said quietly. Then we'll talk. But not today. Today, I'm going to enjoy having my house to myself for the first time in 3 years. Over the next few weeks, we did talk, long, difficult conversations about assumptions, success, and what it means to be a family. Carlos struggled the most. His identity as the successful son, was built on being financially superior to his younger sister. Learning that I'd been subsidizing the family lifestyle while he lectured me about fiscal responsibility was a blow his ego couldn't easily absorb. But we worked through it, with the help of a family therapist who specialized in wealth-related conflicts. Apparently, my cybersecurity firm wasn't the only family secret. It turned out that having money changes everything: how people see you, how you see them, and how you see yourself. We all had to learn new rules for this new reality. 6 months later, Mom and Dad moved back into the house, not as owners but as tenants paying market rent. It was their idea. Dad said he needed to feel like he was contributing, not just accepting charity. I respected that. Carlos and Jessica bought their own place, a smaller house than they'd planned, but one they could actually afford on Carlos's salary. He began referring clients to my firm, and I started using his financial services for my business accounts. Our professional partnership slowly rebuilt into a personal one. The Christmas dinner that ended with security guards escorting my family out became the story we laughed about at future Christmases. The year everything changed. The year we finally started being honest with each other. The year we learned that love without respect isn't love at all. And every Christmas since, when we sit around that same mahogany table, in my house, we remember that the best gifts aren't the ones you unwrap. They're the truths you finally choose to share.